Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Archana Singh from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Delhi. Today we are going to talk on the module Planar Chromatography Types and Applications, which is under the paper Techniques in Molecular Biophysics 1. After completing this module, you should be able to understand the principle of planar chromatography, what are the different types of planar chromatography, what are the components of and the factors that affect planar chromatography, and we will also have a brief discussion on the applications of planar chromatography. As we are aware, chromatography is broadly classified into planar and column. In planar chromatography, the stationary phase is a solid particle or a thin liquid film that's coated on either a solid particular packing material. Column chromatography, on the other hand, has a stationary phase which is packed into a narrow column, and then the mobile phase is passed through the column using gravity or by applying pressure. And in planar chromatography, we let the mobile phase flow over this thin liquid film. Let us now go into a brief history of planar chromatography before we get into the details of each of the different kinds of planar chromatography. As we all know, Sweat is often called the father of chromatography because of his work on chromatography and adsorption, which was seminal to the progress of organic chemistry investigation. However, as far as paper chromatography or planar chromatography is concerned, as far back as Pliny the Elder, there were methods that he used to detect iron sulfate in copper acetate using papyrus. Of course, he did not term it as a paper chromatography, but this technique was being used to distinguish between compounds. However, modern paper chromatography began with Runge, whose photograph is on the slide, and who used paper to differentiate between colored dyes. The picture illustrates one of his experiments. Martin and Singe again, whose work on distribution and partition chromatography got them the Nobel Prize, also published a variation using paper chromatography. However, the discovery of planar chromatography, or more specifically thin layer chromatography in its modern form, has been ascribed to Ismailov and Schreiber, who spread thin layers of solvents on glass plates and performed separations, while Gruss tried out separations of these kinds earlier. So as we are all aware, parallel groups are often working on the same techniques or the same hypotheses, and then their work converges or gives out different variations of the same. So after this work by Ismailov and Schreiber and preliminary work by Gruss, further developments to improve this method, including fixing the sorbent, incorporating indicators to allow the visualization of the separated materials. However, it was Stahl's work that consolidated planar chromatography as a strong, efficient, bona fide separation technique and its introduction into routine analysis. Then Kaiser further refined it, and of course, then onwards, more and more refinements have taken place, even the development of HPTLC that we shall briefly discuss at the end. Now, there are two broad forms of planar chromatography. The first one is paper chromatography, which is generally a qualitative analytical chemistry technique. And this particular form of planar chromatography involves the use of uniform absorbent paper as a stationary phase with a suitable liquid solvent as the mobile phase. Now, this particular form of planar chromatography can be done in one dimension, which means that you can let the mobile phase run till the edge of the paper and then your separation is complete. Or after it's run in one direction, you change the direction of the paper by 90 degrees and then you let the separation occur again. And this helps in the case when the components of a mixture are not very well separated in one dimension. So the second dimension helps to separate them more clearly. The components of a mixture that are non-volatile obviously can be separated and visualized. And for this visualization, you can use a variety of chemical reagents. The examples of some we shall be seeing shortly. Now, the good thing about paper chromatography, despite its simplicity, is that it is rapid and it is quite reproducible and relatively inexpensive. The diagram here shows you a very simple kind of a paper chromatography in which the ink, your common ink that is used in fountain pens, has been spotted onto the base of your separation medium, which is the filter paper. And then as the separation occurs, you can see that the ink is not really one single chemical, but it is a mixture of chemicals, and these get separated out because chromatography, by definition, as we know, is a separation of compounds because of their differential interaction with what we call two phases, the mobile phase and the stationary phase, which is what is occurring in this example shown here on the slide. So thin layer chromatography, which is the second type of planar chromatography that we are discussing, the separation takes place on chromatoplates. Now, the term chromatoplates was coined by Retsimer, who used glass plates coated with silica and applied multiple samples on the same plate, allowing for a high throughput. Now, these chromatoplates could be made of glass, metal, or plastic, and other materials other than silica that Retsimer used are also used as the absorbent material coated on it. Now, in high-performance thin layer chromatography, an additional advancement has been made in that the particle sizes of this adsorbent material that has been coated is very small, so microns, and so the silica coating, for example, its particle size is in microns. So the general method overview of thin layer chromatography is as follows. It starts with the sample preparation, and the sample may be a plant or a microbial extract. Then you select the appropriate plate and the adsorbent material that will be coated on the plate. These could be commercial. Sometimes they are prepared and coated in labs, although the commercial ones are much more uniform, have better reproducibility for understandable reasons. Then comes the part of selection also of the solvent. Then the sample application and separation that takes place in the separation tank, which is basically the tank with the solvent system. Then thereafter, the separation plate is taken out and the spot is visualized using different types of compounds that we shall briefly discuss. Then, of course, if the separation process is not only for analytical but for preparative purposes, then there is some post-separation processing in which the spots may be taken out and then eluted for further analysis, for example, using gas chromatography or other chromatographic methods. So here is the overview of the method development in a more diagrammatic format, which starts with the selection of the stationary phase, the selection of the vapor phase and solvents. In fact, one of the applications of TLC is also to standardize the best solvent for different kinds of chromatographic procedures or even subsequent chromatographic procedures. Followed by the selection of the solvent and the vapor phase is the process in which the mobile phase is optimized. So its pH, the mixture of solvents in case that is being used, etc. is optimized. Then the development mode for the compounds being separated is selected. And finally, the other operating parameters such as the temperature, the humidity, etc. are also standardized and such that the method will give you optimal resolution or desirable resolution. Now, as we said, the choice of the stationary phase and of course of the supports also is important. Now, the choice of stationary phase is important, and the knowledge of or prior knowledge of the mixture you are trying to separate is very critical in deciding which the stationary phase will be. Glass can be used as a support, so can aluminium and also plastic, but each of these has their advantages and disadvantages. The glass is chemically inert, but it is brittle. Aluminium is not good if strongly acidic or oxidizing stains are being used. And plastic, as expected, is often poorly heat resistant. Now, usually when the stationary phase that is chosen is polar, then the separation is called a normal phase separation. However, when a non-polar stationary phase is chosen, this is called a reverse phase TLC, or reverse phase planar chromatography. Now, the key elements in paper chromatography is, of course, the type of paper. The commonly used medium is the filter paper, which acts both as the support and the stationary medium because of the water or the moisture adsorbed onto it. Then sometimes paper towels for an exploratory separation can also be used, but as I said, it's filter paper that's the most commonly used stationary support phase in paper chromatography. Now, the separation itself occurs because the analytes in a mixture will interact differently with the stationary phase and the mobile phase. And finally, the development or the visualization can be done if it's a colored compound. So for example, you saw your example of ink. So the different components of ink are also colored, so you can directly visualize those components. However, in the case of colorless compounds, so for example amino acids, you may need a visualization technique. And the commonly used ones are ninhydrin, sometimes ammonia, sometimes hydrogen sulfide. And ninhydrin, as we shall see in the video, is used for amino acid visualization. Now let us see some stationary phase examples and the different kinds of analytes that can be separated using these different kinds of stationary phases. So for example, silica gel is commonly used for separation of amino acids and hydrocarbons. Magnesium silicate is used for separation of steroids and essential oils. And for fatty acid methyl esters, or for separation of triacyl glycerol components, the method of choice to check the purity is silver ion thin layer chromatography. Now keep in mind that the stationary phase examples that I've listed here are some of the simplest ones. This coating, or the stationary phase, can also be modified with other groups such as cyanopropyl groups or amino group modifications, which allows them wider range of separations. It improves their reproducibility. And these plates are then listed as specialized plates on the different commercial companies that market them. But a wide range of modifications can be made on the original simple sorbents that were used as coatings on the plates. Coming now to spot visualization, which is obviously important not only for you to be able to detect it in comparison to a standard that you may have run, but also if you want to go further with eluting the spot, you must be able to tell where exactly the spot is. So this is basically visualizing the spots that have separated, or the different components of the mixture that you separated and then identified based on whatever is the most appropriate method of visualization. Now, visualization methods can be destructive or non-destructive. Initial developments, as we spoke about in the history, have been incorporating a fluorescent material or a compound in the coated gel itself, which allows the detection after visualization under UV light. So in such cases, if the material is fluorescent and then your spot is blocking the access of the UV to the material, the spots will be identified as dark patches, while the rest of your sorbent material, the coated material, will be fluorescent. And to mark the spot, of course, while the UV lamp is on, you will have to mark it clearly using a pencil so that later on you know where to elute it out of. So this method, as stated, can be used for direct staining with fluorescent compounds, which is often used for polyphenols or for benzene derivatives. Yet again, the separation plate, after the separation has occurred, can be kept in a chamber with iodine vapor, and organic and aromatic compounds are often visualized by this technique, in which brown spots appear at the side of the separated chemicals. Then there are stains that are used for more general purposes, or that can be used to stain a wide range of compounds, such as cerium molybdate or vanillin or p-N-isaldehyde. More specific stains examples are also given here, such as we use ninhydrin for amino acids. Primulene is used for lipids, and a picture shall come up shortly. And then dinitrophenylhydrazine can be used for alcohols and aldehydes. Here is a slide with a picture of a TLC done in our laboratory, and the lanes have been labeled. As you can see, this TLC plate, the lanes have been labeled 1 through 7, and essentially what this experiment was, using the TLC to separate the components of a lipid extracted from membranes, and after the extraction and application and separation, these spots were visualized on the TLC plate. Now, this particular visualization of the lipid components that had been extracted from the serum or the membrane was done after staining with primulene. So after staining the plate with primulene, ultraviolet light was used to visualize it, and you can see these spots. Lane 1 through 6 are samples, and the 7th lane had a standard loaded so that you could compare your spots and determine what each of the spots was. As we said earlier, that we will have to optimize a lot of parameters before we set out to analyze our actual samples. Now, there are many factors that will affect TLC separation, and some of these come under the category of the optimization of other parameters section, but you ideally want your resolution to be good so that each of your spots that you've separated in a TLC is identified properly so that it can be either eluted or subsequently analyzed again. So the different factors, of course, the nature of the compounds being separated is one of them, and strongly acidic or basic compounds tend to undergo streaking, which can be modified or minimized to some extent by changing the pH sometimes, or optimizing the solvent mixture, or the mobile, which will act as the mobile phase. Then the kind of development solution used can affect the separation. The temperature and humidity can affect the separation. The amount of sample that was initially applied, or the spot size, can also influence the separation of the components. Then the solvent front movement and the final visualization protocols that have been used, or the staining solutions that have been used, also affect how well these spots will be delineated. Now, having understood a little bit about the planar chromatography, it is evident that some of the very unique advantages of TLC is its cost effectiveness and the speed at which the separation can occur. TLC now, with its different modifications, the range of the sizes and sorbents that are available, is also amenable to high throughput separation. Then it is good for a preliminary separation of compounds for subsequent analysis. For example, in the picture showed to you, the spots of the different kinds of lipids would now be eluted and then run on a gas chromatograph for further analysis of its components. And it is an efficient screening procedure before going on into more comprehensive analysis. Now, some of the applications of TLC are listed here. keep in mind that this is a very small list and TLC can be applied to a large number of applications. However, some of the ones that are listed here are: it can be used for separation of multiple compounds in a mixture, such as drug residues or alkaloids. It can be used for assessment of purity of the samples and is often utilized in quality control for consumer goods and for checking of adulterants in food analysis. It can be utilized for a preparative separation, that is, one example that we showed you, lipid classes, also often used for bioactive compounds to separate these and then subsequently analyze them. Many forensic applications are present for TLC, such as toxin identification, identification of pesticide residues, and finally, it is a very important component of standardization for column chromatographic separation. So before we enter into any kind of column chromatography, gas or liquid separation procedure, this method, TLC, is a very good one for determining what are the most appropriate solvent systems that will work for the column chromatographic separations. One variant of thin layer chromatography, which has made it much more efficient and was initially standardized by a scientist at Merck, Germany, is called high performance thin layer chromatography. Now, this is an enhanced and efficient form of TLC by virtue of the smaller particle size that has been achieved for the sorbents that are coated on the plates, the automated instrumentation and the software controls that allows for improved reproducibility. And because of the smaller particle sizes and the efficiency of the movement by capillary action, smaller plates are able to achieve for what was done earlier with larger plates. Because of this efficiency also, much lesser samples are required and much less mobile phase is used up. So the movement, of course, is by capillary action for the separation. And because of the smaller plates and this efficiency, the separation can occur in a shorter migration distance in a much shorter time. Now, specialized equipment is obviously available, and this equipment, along with the other automated parts of the instrumentation and software, allows a very high throughput, efficient separation of compounds in a mixture using this procedure. Now, the separation of the components, whether it is paper chromatography or it is thin layer chromatography, which is the other kind of planar chromatography that we shall discuss, the separation depends on the balance of the polarities. So you have your stationary phase, which may be the paper, or you have the stationary phase in thin layer chromatography that's coated on a glass plate or aluminum plate. And the separation itself depends on the balance of the polarities of the stationary phase and the solvent or the mobile phase that you have and the material of the spot. So the mixture of chemicals that is present in the spot or the compound that you're trying to resolve will be differentially soluble or differentially interact with your stationary phase and with the solvent mixture. And it is this differential interaction and either partitioning or adsorption on the stationary phase that will allow the different components to separate out. Now, once your solvent has reached the top, that is the top of your plate or the top of your filter paper, then that plate, the separation plate, is removed, it is dried, and then the separated components of the mixtures are visualized. If they are colored, of course, you can just see them. If not, you will have to use, as we said, some solution or some chemical to visualize it and then mark those spots for further analysis. Now, these solvents that we can use are usually a mixture of different kinds, and there are different polarities. So as we said, since it is the balance of the polarity of the plate, the development solvent and the spot material that will allow the separation to take place, the polarities of the solvent is so chosen that optimum separation occurs. Now we have a range of solvents of different polarities. So For example, water is highly polar, methanol is polar, you have hexane, which is non-polar, and then you have materials of intermediate polarities like chloroform, etc. So usually we use a mix of solvents. So we can use, say, butanol and water mixture. We can use ethanol and pentane mixture. So we use the mixture of different polarities to allow for an optimal separation of the compounds that we are expecting to see in our spot or in our material. So let us now summarize what we've learned in this module. Planar chromatography is a type of chromatographic process in which the stationary phase is a solid particle or a thin liquid film coated on either a solid particulate packing material or on glass or plastic. When it is a solid particle such as paper, which is basically cellulose, or then it is called paper chromatography. And then if it is a liquid film coated on your glass or plastic, then it is called a thin layer chromatography. Some of the common stationary phases that we discussed that are used in thin layer chromatography are silica gel, magnesium silicate, and silver ion. Also, some modifications can be made by adding additional groups that improves their resolutions. The resolution in planar chromatography, remember, will depend on a large number of factors like the thickness of the layer, the moisture on the TLC plate, the vessel saturation, the temperature, the depth of the mobile phase, the nature of the TLC plate itself, the sample size. So remember, a very large spot will not give you a good resolution, and different solvent parameters for which we need to optimize the mixture of solvent based on their polarities. There are a wide range of applications of planar chromatography that can be both preparative and analytical, and some of these include analysis of drug residues, analysis and separation of bioactive components like alkaloids, alcohols, hydrocarbons, pesticide residues, and nutrients such as vitamins, antioxidants, and fatty acids. Thank you.